So tell me, what are the top three songs in your rotation right now?
Ooh, wow.
Whether you're getting up in the morning, whether you're driving to work, about to go work
Yeah,
out,
okay.
top
Top
three
three
songs in your rotation right now that you've been playing recently.
that I've been playing recently. Um, I'm a big Jodeci fan. So I
Okay.
play like a lot of like old school like 90s R&B type stuff like that. So I've been playing some Jodeci as of lately, and one of my favorite like live performances that I like to listen to while I'm like driving, it sounds crazy, but it's this the Mary J. Blige and KC performance of I Don't Want to Do Anything Else from MTV Unplugged. And it's a long backstory behind that. So I got that. I
Mhm.
got ooh, I've been listening to like a lot of old Jeezy lately.
Okay.
Like they came up and just the an album I've been revisiting lately, and this may not be three songs, but it's like three projects that I've been
Got
revisiting.
you. Yeah.
Is Roddy Ricch's Please Excuse Me for Being Antisocial, or
Mm-hmm.
long title, but like that was an important album in an important time in my life. So yeah, those three. I know they weren't songs, but hopefully that helps.
Nah, it's very diverse. I still love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Um, Now you are a fantastic writer, and you've been able to write on a lot of stories that center around sports, particularly Black sports, Black culture. From Young Dolph's connection to Jackson State, I'm talking about the legacy of Dream Nightmares. A
Mhm.
sit down with Damian Lillard, like a whole bunch of things. But recently, you wrote an article on the I Promise School, LeBron James I Promise School, and on March 30th, 2023. LeBron James, in his own words, he said, "Appreciate you for taking the time in my hometown to see the change we're creating at Justin Tinsley." And I don't know about you, but I'll be on the floor,
Yeah,
like passed out.
yeah.
Like, so tell me what your thoughts were, or like even like how your reaction was to seeing somebody like him notify your work.
That's a great question. It's honestly like the first time I've ever really like spoken on it. I mean, it just
Mm-hmm.
happened a couple of weeks ago, but still, um, at that point in time, I was I was on the campus of North Carolina Central University because I had a speaking engagement there earlier that day, and one of the ladies who helped put it together, yeah, she actually went to school with my mom back in the day at South Carolina State University. So
Mm-hmm.
as you see, I got like a lot of HBCU connections in my life. And the event was ending, and I was going back to her office to just pick up basically my luggage because I had checked out of my hotel earlier that day, and I was flying back to DC. And she was like, "All right, yeah, come up here and get that." And so I'm checking my phone, and my homeboy texted me, and he was like, "Yo, I see you with the LeBron shout out." I'm like, what are you talking about? Because a couple of days earlier, like LeBron had reposted a repost about the
Mm-hmm.
story, and I'm like, oh man, that's cool. He put it on his Instagram stories, and but in terms of like social currency, like what means what and how
Yeah.
much it means, and so I thought he was talking about the Instagram story at first.
Mm-hmm.
So when he hit me, I was like, oh yeah, it's cool. Yeah, I saw he posted it on like Instagram. That's what's up. He was like, nah, man, and it was much more colorful language than that, but he was like, nah, like, and he was like, check Twitter. And then like 2 seconds later, he sent me a link to the tweet. I'm like, nah, is this the real LeBron? You know what I
Not
mean?
the
'Cause
real one.
it's like a lot of like you never know with Twitter nowadays. I'm
Could be
like,
a
man,
spam account. You never know.
yeah, exactly. You man, people buying blue checks like they like on welfare stamps and stuff. So it's like I'm like, man, no way. And I clicked it and it was him. And I'm like, wow, that's super dope. That's super fire. And it was a great look because it was a story that I really, really believe in. And it's a story that um it's even more so about culture and society and the world than it is, LeBron James. Obviously, LeBron is an incredible entry point into a story like that. You know what I mean? But it also, if you know Akron, Ohio, there's an Akron, Ohio in a lot of places in terms of like these places that they don't get a lot of media coverage. They don't get a lot, they're not seen in terms of like the national scope of like what's going on. And I just thought that somebody like LeBron and his stature, and really more so like his team that he has around him, that they're what they're doing in Akron, Ohio is some incredible stuff. And to see him retweet that was really cool. I'm not gonna lie to you. My mentions are still in shambles because people are tweeting me about you're not better than Jordan or LeBron's the greatest ever and everybody else sucks. And it's just like wow, like there's no way I could deal with like 80 million followers of this.
Yeah, yeah. But I'm saying this one example just shows how great of a journalist you've been able to build your legacy and build up and become. So I want to go all the way back to the beginning though to talk about
Ooh,
little Justin Tinsley.
ooh.
So I saw that you were born in North Carolina. What part of North Carolina were you born in? Do you know?
Yeah, not yet. Salisbury, North Carolina. It's about 20
Okay.
minutes north of Charlotte. Yep.
Okay, yeah. So born in North Carolina, raised in Virginia. What was your childhood like?
Uh, my childhood was pretty fun. It was pretty cool. It wasn't anything crazy. I grew up with my mom and my grandma, and my little brother came into the picture around 1992. And it was just I lived in a all black neighborhood, and so thankfully there were like kids my age, like growing up, and we just all hung out together. Like we played video games together, we played basketball. Um, and it was just I'm very grateful for my upbringing in terms like that. But my mom and my grandma always hammered like the importance of education into me.
Mhm.
And like you don't necessarily need to be the valedictorian, but you need to understand like what an education can get you, and not even just in this country, but in the world. And so they're two former school teachers themselves. You feel me? And yeah, so it was a cool upbringing. Like it was me, my brother, my mom, and my grandma,
Mhm.
you know, and we figured it out. And we all had like a HBCU upbringing. So like my upbringing was just based around like, yo, we're gonna go to Virginia State's homecoming, and we're gonna kick it there for one weekend of the year. And I just thought that was regular. I didn't know what an HBCU was until I got a little bit older. I'm like, wait, you mean all colleges not like this? And of course I knew they weren't by the time I got like 16, 17. But I just came up in like a black community raised by like a lot of black people, and it was fun. I really enjoyed it.
Mhm. And I'm really glad that you mentioned your association with Virginia State and being able to attend and be
Yeah.
around such a HBCU enriched community coming up. And I know you yourself decided to attend Hampton University. I know your grandmother went to Xavier, your mom went to SC State, like you just mentioned, and then having cousins and so many people around are right in your life involved into the HBCUs. But my question for you is not so much about why you decided to attend one, but what character trait do you feel like you obtained from attending your HBCU? Because I know for me, I
Mhm.
was able to get like a certain sense of ambition that I know I didn't have before. So what about you?
No, I think that ambition is a real thing. That ambition is something that you may not expect it going into it, and you may not even realize it while you're there. But literally, the moment you step off campus, excuse me, rather, and you're into the quote unquote real world, you're like, whoa, like this is a little different. But I'm also prepared for it. I felt like a HBCU prepared me for so many things what life threw in front of me at that point in
Mhm.
time, because um and it gave me a sense of confidence that I never knew I had, because I've never really been like the type of like, oh, look at me, I'm like this person. I'm not I'm extroverted, but when it comes to like promoting myself, I'm like supremely introverted, because I don't
Mhm.
want to make it look like I'm trying to like boast or brag about myself. But one thing like going to a HBCU taught me was just like, yo, embrace what you're passionate about. Like, don't hide your passion, and understand that, like, yo, people who look like us, we can change the world. And like, we can like really make a big impact just because, our school's football games weren't on, all the major networks as the game of the week, and we weren't getting first overall draft picks in whatever draft you can think of, like, doesn't mean that our college experience was any less valuable than somebody else's. And
Mhm.
I learned that very early growing up, thankfully, because I grew up around HBCU culture. And that's one thing that like I knew I kind of figured that I was gonna get going into Hampton,
Mhm.
but like my 4 years at Hampton, those 4 years have really punctuated how I look at life and how I operate and how I move throughout life, because like I feel so confident because I see so many of my peers that I went to school with doing great things in their lives. And it's just like, man, like I'm not trying to like keep up with the Joneses, but like as you said, it's a sense of motivation there that you really can't tap into unless you actually been in it.
Mhm. Do you have a favorite memory from Hampton? You gotta pick one now. You
Oh,
just gotta try and pick one.
ah, my favorite memory from Hampton. We used to have Alpha Fridays like my senior year.
Mhm.
And I remember it was one particular like Alpha Friday where my one of my line brothers was a DJ who his name is Tay James, and
Mhm.
he's actually Justin Bieber's DJ, and he's been Bieber's DJ for well over a decade at this point. I was definitely well over a decade. And like we were just in there and he would just play music and I would always like study Tay because
Mhm.
the way Tay would like pick which music to play or pick which song to play. I studied him a lot, and yeah, and I just remember me and him, we would just always have like great music conversations about things. So like there's a bunch of memories. I can say this party, that party, but in
Mhm.
terms of like my interaction with somebody, like my interaction with like my line brother Tay James, like we had some incredible conversations about music. And I'm just so proud to see like where he is in his life right now, where I am in my life. It's completely different phases of life or chapters, but we always tap back in and we always talk about, man, you remember when we used to just like download music on our laptops and just talk about it? So like it's those type of memories. Like, yeah, class was great. I got everything from class. I graduated with good grades, but grades can't never top experiences and
Yeah.
memories. So yeah.
Now, you graduated from Hampton in May 2008, correct?
Correct. Correct. You did
So
your research. I appreciate your research, yo. Like as a research nerd myself, I ain't gonna call you a research nerd, but if you want to, that's cool. But like I appreciate the research and what you're doing. Like I salute you for real, East. For real. I salute. Sorry, let
thank
me cut
you.
you off.
No,
Yeah.
you good. Shout out to Mr. Roden. I got a shout out to him.
Hey, shout out my man Bill Roden. That's my guy. That is my guy. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
You're good. But being that you graduated from Hampton in May 2008 as the man on campus with having all the new music, whether it be the Lil Wayne mixtapes or whatever everybody was listening to
Yeah.
at the time,
Mm-hmm.
and then fast forward into 2015 when you wrote your first piece for ESPN about Marvin Gaye's, excuse me, Detroit Lions tryout. So can you describe in the best words that you can that 7-year journey from working in retail at PacSun or working at Ruby Tuesdays and how it developed you into not only the journalist but the person that you are today?
Ooh, East, like that's for one, that's a phenomenal question. But two, I'm gonna try to compact this answer as much as I can because so yeah, from 2008 when I graduated Hampton, 2015 when I started, or when that Marvin Gaye story got published at
Mhm.
ESPN, 7 years, there's so much that happened over that 7 year span, and I'm gonna again. I graduated from Hampton in 2008, and I graduated with a 3.6, 3.7 GPA, and I was involved on campus. I was doing all of this, and I'm like, I've done everything that you're supposed to do.
Mhm.
Like when you go up to college, like you have a great social life, you have a great academic life, and you just figure like that type of stuff will just meld you into whatever the next chapter of your life is supposed to look like. It did not look like that for me because I graduated straight into a recession and I couldn't find a job. I moved away from home to move back home to go back and go back and go back and go back, like literally a couple of times, like 3, 4 times where I was in between employment and having to file for unemployment and just trying to find something that I thought was going to inspire me. But the only thing that I did consistently around that time, because it wasn't even working because it was just really hard to keep a job. And
Mhm.
the one thing that I did consistently was write. And I just honed my writing skills through, thank God for places like the smoking section and shout out my girl Karen Civil and the Sports Fan Journal, and these are just places that I used to just write at just to, get stuff off my chest, and it was tough because you're writing and you're trying to pursue this and you're trying to reach out to people like, hey, I just need one opportunity to do this. Here's my pitch on this, and they don't respond, and it's just like they look at you crazy, like, well, where's your experience? Do you come from X, Y, and Z? Like, bro, I don't have a big publication like backing me right now. I just have, like, to me, the smoking section was my Rolling Stone. You know what I mean? It was at that point in time, it was my source and the vibe, where it was just like, these are the people who are creating like the commentary that I want to read, and I wanted to be part of that. And so between those 7 years, between 08 and 15, it was just a lot of trying to find yourself. It was a lot of, to be honest with you, self-doubt, because it's like, man, what the hell am I doing wrong? Like, I don't, it wasn't even a second guess at that point. It was like a fifth guess. And like, man, am I doing the right thing, bro? Like, really, like, how do I make this work? And it came down to, sometimes like when you feel like you hit your lowest point, it's like, that's when like a door opens. And so when I went to Hampton's homecoming in 2014, I was just there to have a good time. I wasn't going there to like find a job. I was just like, yo, man, I just been, my headspace these past couple of months has been wild, because it's just, I'm trying to incorporate where I am in life. And I went to Hampton's homecoming, and it was an open bar day party, which is, if you went to Hampton, that's wild. Like, we just have that. You know what I mean? It's a dry campus. And they're like, okay, cool. So I went in there, and one of my like really good friends, one of my frat brothers, came up to me and said, yo, Tins, I'm a big fan of your work. Do you mind if I introduce you to somebody at ESPN? And I'm like, yeah, sure, but are you sure you want to ask me that? Because like in it, like shouldn't you be asking the other person, like, can I introduce you to somebody who I'm a fan of, who goes to school with me? And I'm like, I'm not ESPN. And again, that's part of me, like putting self-worth on like where you work, and which is, that's another conversation altogether. But he was like, no, I want to introduce you to somebody at ESPN. She can help you out. And thankfully, she was a graduate of Hampton, and she took some of my writing samples down, and I did a couple of phone calls. And I lied to you not, East. By the time of the top of January 2015, January 5th, a day after Stuart Scott had passed, I had a one-way flight from Richmond, Virginia to Los Angeles, California to start my career at ESPN, all because, one, obviously you got to put the work in, but two, because of Hampton. Hampton made that connection.
Let me give you a quick round of applause for HBCUs, like, hey. For the connections alone. But no, I'm seriously glad that you mentioned all that, because that's a lot of space that not only I found myself in, but many of my peers, and just, I'm pretty sure a lot of college students, whether you attend an HBCU or not, like having this certainty that you think you might have post-graduation, and then life may not going exactly where you think you are, but always ending up where you ultimately are meant to be. And so I know now, obviously, is made clear where you're currently meant to be. You're a regular panelist on Around the Horn, which is, for people who aren't familiar, Around the Horn is like a roundtable discussion show on ESPN. It came out in 2002 and formed it's kind of like a panel style game. And so I know you talked about how surreal it is to be on a show that you watched coming up in the earlier years of your life. And here you are now, you're on bars and barbershops across the country. So if you could have a time machine, right, and hop in it and maybe go back and talk to, let's say, 19, 20-year-old Justin, and say, hey, man, we about to be on Around the Horn a couple of years, how do you think he would react it?
I wouldn't have believed it. I would have been like, man, security, get this guy out of here. That's what I would have been like. 19, 20-year-old me, so I would have been at Hampton. Like, I watched it every day. But like, I didn't even think I wanted to do something like that. I just knew, I was like, oh, this is a cool show. It's like, this is really cool. And I like seeing what they're talking about, but also like, you know, I want to see somebody else. I want to see somebody on that show who looks like me. You know what I mean? Not just so I can get on there and spew like the dumbest opinions that you can think of or whatever, but just like I feel like I can conduct myself in like a manner that, you know, will make people proud to see me on there. And it's like I didn't really think about it too much then. Honestly, I didn't really think about it too much until I met Tony Reality, the host, for the first time in 2019 when he came to Washington D.C. He came to we're called Anscape now, but back then we were called the Undefeated, as you very well know. And Tony Reality came to the office, and I just introduced myself, and I was like, "Hey, look, I'm a big fan of the show. I've been at ESPN for at that point in time about 4 years, and I'm like, I'm just looking to diversify myself, and I'm trying to figure out ways to, you know what I mean, just, you know, dip my toe in a lot of pools, I guess you could say." And he was like, "Are you serious?" I'm like, "Yeah." He was like, "Let's make it happen." And he like we exchanged contact information, and of course the pandemic happens, and that whole period of our life happens. But around 20 like fall 2020, there was like this group to form. It was called Here For It TV at ESPN, and they put together like some people that they wanted to see within, you know, ESPN TV ranks, like younger, more diverse, or whatever the case may be. And for whatever reason, they tapped me, and my partner was Monica McNutt. And Monica and I, we would go back and forth multiple times a week on like Zoom calls, just like this. And, you know, we would just like debate about whatever the topics or the topic of the day was in sports. And it's like phenomenal to see how that happened. I know that wasn't part of your question,
No,
but
you
it just
did.
reminded me, you know. And so shout out to Monica. Like she's a legend for real.
We're gonna take a brief intermission. We're gonna play a little game. It's not really a game. I try to do like some type of fun, creative activity with each of my guests.
I
But
love it.
basically, we're gonna go through some old tweets, and I want to see if you still feel the same way now
Oh my God. Oh, please.
as you did when you tweeted them. Okay, so I'm gonna share my
Oh,
screen really
okay.
quickly.
Okay. Okay. Oh man. You got to tell me like when the date is too.
Oh, I got you. It's all up there.
Okay. All right. Oh Lord Jesus. This is hilarious.
So you said that Iman Shumpert on what was this, February 23rd, 2012, Iman Shumpert does look like Gucci Mane. And I want to understand like what was going through your mind during this moment. I did a side-by-side comparison for the people who
I don't even know what I was thinking of that, because like Iman Shumpert in 2012 did not look like the Iman Shumpert you just showed right there, and Gucci Mane did not look. I don't know. February 2012, where was I at that point in time in my life? I don't know. I can't agree with that old tweet. I don't know if I agree with it. Yeah.
Okay.
Get that guy out of here.
On December 27th,
yes.
2022, you said Summer 16 in DC was one for the history books.
No,
what was going on?
Oh, I remember. Well, at that point, what's crazy is I was probably just listening to old music. That is, so this was posted December 27th, 2022. This is 3 days before my son was born. So I was just sitting around just waiting for things to happen. So, but summer 2016, geez, that was a legendary summer in DC too. Oh man, the day parties, the night parties. Like that was when Rihanna's Anti was big. Drake was everywhere with the views. So like you can go to parties and just have like a strip. Oh no, the next summer was oh my God, no, that was one for the books. I will always remember summer 2016, and that was the year that like LeBron got the title for Cleveland, so everybody was out watching those games. Damn, what else was going on? Like, it was summer 2016 in DC. Like that was I turned 30 that year. So that was a great summer. We were outside like at least 5 days a week. At least 5 days a week. that was a great time.
Now, okay, on what's this, November 25th?
Oh,
November is just the month of great sweets, apparently. You said Hawaiian sweet rolls have such a vicious grip on me. Gotta limit my intake to 2 days a year. Thankfully and unfortunately, today is one of those days. And honestly, I relate because my boyfriend is obsessed with some Hawaiian sweet rolls, but I just want to know. You was just snacking?
No, like, again, like the tweet says, like, those things are so good. They taste like the tears of angels. Like what I at least would imagine a tear of an angel would taste like. Like those things are delicious, and like I could like honestly sit on my couch right now. If you give me a 12-pack of Hawaiian sweet rolls, I will pop them joints like popcorn because they're so good. And like I'm trying to lose some weight, and it's like Hawaiian sweet rolls are not in the diet of losing weight. And I'm like, I can only limit, again, like the tweet says, I gotta limit myself to 2 days a year. And thankfully that was Thanksgiving Day of last year. Now I don't know what the other day would be, but I'm just thankful that I can get 2 days.
All right, we got the last one. November 14th, 2019, you said, minus the bullshit, life's great, I'm blessed.
Yeah. November 2019. I was finalizing the contract for my book on Biggie Small. So I was like, yo, I'm actually really about to write a book. I was in, and I still am, in a really great relationship with my, at that point in time, my then girlfriend, Jade, who is now my wife. You know, the beautiful mother of my child. And you know, my family was in good shape in terms of just health in terms of where they were in life. And I'm like, you know, like minus the BS, life's great. Like that's one of my favorite Jeezy lyrics. And so yeah, I just took it and ran with it.
I want to talk a little bit about your book. It was all a dream about Biggie and the world that made him. I've made a purchase.
Yo, here we go. Yeah, there we go.
Not gonna lie, I didn't read it, but I listened to it on audiobook. And because of you, I'm a fan of audiobooks now.
You read it. You read it. I don't care whether you actually read it page by page or you listen to it. Either way, you read it.
And also, if I'm correct, it's coming up on the 1-year anniversary of the release of the book. Was that May 10th, 2022?
Yep. Exact that exact day, May 10th, 2022.
And I really am a fan of it because, like, oftentimes when you read a biography or an autobiography, it's like, hey, you know, I was born, this happened, okay, I went to XYZ place, I was born in X town, this happened, I discovered my passion for this, boom, boom, boom. And, you know, it's cool, but it's not as in depth as I feel like he was able to produce with this piece, because it offers, I feel like, more of a socioeconomic analysis to the life of Biggie Smalls. And you talk about everything from, like, you know, Richard Nixon and all the stuff, like the war on drugs and all these other things that's going on while, you know, Biggie's becoming who he is, or Christopher Wallace for that matter. So can you talk to me a little bit about the emotions as an author that you were experiencing during this writing process? Because we know it took a lot of research. We know, you know, all the stuff that you had to do to create this book. But as for you as an author, what emotions were you experiencing as you were writing this?
I mean, that's an incredible question, because I mean, there's really no one way to take it, right? When you're writing, it's one thing to like write a story, but then it's something totally different to write a book, because then it's like you're writing 25 different stories, but while also keeping the same through line. And so the emotions that came with me for that was just like, this is a person whose life, whose music, whose career has influenced me in so many crazy ways. And I didn't want to just be like somebody who was latching on to this legacy just to say, hey, I wrote a book on Biggie. Like, I wanted to do something like that was different, that a lot of people weren't expecting. And I'm not saying that it made it a perfect book by any means, but I knew that, like, we all know Biggie's life story from a very, very high level perspective. You know, born in Brooklyn, maybe sold some drugs, beef with Tupac, passed away in a very tragic manner. Yes, all of those things happen, but that is not even the tip of the iceberg of what his life actually meant. And like, what did he grow up around, voluntarily and involuntarily? What was he living through at the same time when these things were going on, whether he cared about it or not? And so when you see the title, like Biggie in the World That Made Him, I wanted this to be just as much of a socio-political, socio-cultural, and socio-economical examination of America, because then you understand why this young black boy from Brooklyn made the decisions that he did, even if you feel like he didn't have to make them to begin with. Because in essence, if you're black and in America, you've always felt like I'm behind the eight ball in some ways, and how can I get in front of that eight ball? And in a lot of ways, this was Christopher Wallace's way, who later became known as, of course, as Biggie Smalls and Notorious B.I.G. This was his way of getting in front of that eight ball.
Now, I just want to read a quick excerpt for the book, just so you guys can just get a quick gist, just understand how immaculate your pen is. You did a really great job. I'm gonna just say, I'm not just saying it because you're a guest, but I really enjoyed it. And the quotes, or the excerpt that I want to read real quick, it's the last paragraph of the introduction, so we're not gonna go too far.
Okay.
And it says, and for the generations that follow Big, consider this part of the curriculum when trying to understand who Christopher Wallace was and who Biggie Smalls still is. How the world around him influenced his decisions, his mistakes, and his triumphs. How he was a natural comedian and a fun-loving and debonair young man who also grew up in a world of toxic masculinity. However, in the final years and months of his life, he was so desperately trying to evolve into a better person. Forget rapper. He already had mastered that. And why, from the moment the first bullet burst out of the assassin's gun and connected with Biggie's torso at the corner of Fairfax Avenue and Wilshire Boulevard in Los Angeles on March 9th, 1997, rap has tried, is still trying to pay homage to his legacy. Get to know me, man. To know me is to love me. He always did have a way with words. And for people who may not be into reading, he could have easily said, hey, this book is just the analysis about Biggie from the time that he got shot, and then, ended with the famous quote. So for you to have that attention to detail, I really want to commend you for that. So.
No, that means I can't even really put into words how much that means, because like that's when you're a writer and when you're a journalist, like you're often left alone with your words, and you want to be like, yeah, I hope I did that topic justice, and I hope I did that part of the piece that I did on that topic justice. So for you to read that and for you to say the words that you said, like, nah, that's heavy, and I really appreciate that.
I want to talk about one more thing regarding the book. You said later on in quote, I feel like it was chapter 22, or maybe it was a chapter about 23 about Christopher C.J. Wallace. Yep. But you said that people are never just one thing, even if that's often how we will register them in our minds. So I feel like that quote alone kind of, I guess, summarizes how you were able to write the book without bias. Because yes, Biggie was, who he is, a great rapper or a great father or a great friend, but he also had a kind of misogynistic mindset. He also was, made some mistakes and all these other things. So for you, was it easy or hard to kind of write this book without bias?
It was, you never want to do anything that feels like a hit piece on somebody, but you also want to be honest. And I knew that like my general appreciation and love for Big was gonna shine through on this, and I wanted it to shine through, especially to like different generations. As I said in the intro of the book you just read, like I wanted it to be like, here's who this guy was, here's what he experienced, and here are the things that defined him. And I knew for me to write something that would define him, you can't just focus on like the good parts, because being the good parts don't make it's not the entire story. And you have to focus on the things that, Big may have made a mistake on, not may have, but made a mistake on throughout the course of his life. And you have to talk about these uncomfortable things, whether it be like his relationship with Lil Kim, and the infidelity within the marriage to Faith. None of which is breaking news or anything. Like, this has been discussed for years, but like, you can't have an honest discussion of somebody, especially at this point in time when the book came out 25 years after his passing. Like, you'd be doing the discussion a disservice if you don't talk about the entire discussion.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I felt about it. And I knew to write this book, I would have to address the uncomfortable parts, because again, like, if I don't address the uncomfortable parts, then somebody could check me and be like, "Oh no, you purposely left this out," and I don't ever want that to happen.
Now another thing to take away from this book is about in life you have two dashes on your tombstone, which your mother and your grandmother talked to you
Yep.
in regards to the passing of your uncle.
Yep.
My regards to that. Condolences to that as
Thank you.
well.
Appreciate it.
But they stated that you have two dates on your tombstone: the date that you come in this world and the date that you're out of there. But the story of your life is within the dash. And I want to know, for you personally, how do you feel about your dash so far?
Move, man. That's super heavy. And it's a great question though. I'm glad you asked that. Uh I think with my dash, and like, people, like, if you really get a chance to like know my story, and if you ever get a chance to like research it or wherever, if it even comes up in research, I'm very proud of my story thus far. I wish some things would have happened differently, and I wish I would have made different decisions at different points in my life, but I also understand that, like, I'm getting a chance to do something that I've always wanted to do. I've always wanted to write, and I've always wanted my words and my thoughts to be taken, with considerable weight and thought and appreciation. And I feel like I'm in that position right now. So, um, I would have never guessed this like 25 years ago. I would have never guessed it. I I just figured I don't know what I thought I'd be doing,
Mhm.
but it's one of those things where you start to see a door open. You're like, oh wow, I wasn't expecting that door to open. What can I do to make this next door open? And then that next door open. And so, that's where I am right now. But like, I could have never seen this coming. I
Mhm.
it doesn't shock me at all. I mean, it does shock me, but it never makes me look at myself like, oh yeah, I was supposed to get this. I earned, I was owed this. No, I ain't owed anything. I gotta work for everything that I want in life.
Mhm.
And thankfully, so far, it's been blessing me. So that means I gotta work even harder now.
Now, as I mentioned before, you've been able to be the writer and just the curator behind many great stories and just talk to so many people. But I would like to know, what if you have one, what's a favorite interview that you have been able to do?
Ooh, one of my favorite interviews that just pops off like the top of my head. I was working on an interview for this Marvin Gaye story, not the NFL trial one, but the
Mhm.
Marvin Gaye story that I did for the 35th anniversary of him singing the national anthem at the All-Star game in Vegas.
Mhm.
And so I interviewed so many people who saw Marvin Gaye sing the national anthem at half court at the Great Western Forum in Inglewood back in 1983. I'm talking, Magic Johnson, Isaiah Thomas, Dr. J, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Reggie Theus, Mo Cheeks, like bunch of like big time dudes back in the league back then. But the one who shocked me the most was Pat Riley, who is now, obviously the Don over at the Miami Heat. Like, this guy has brought championships to Miami, Los Angeles. He's coached in New York, right? And I never thought that somebody just told me, like, on a whim, like, oh, you need to interview Pat Riley. Like, he
Mhm.
loves Marvin Gaye. I'm like, really? And man, I had all these questions set up for Pat Riley. I had like 6, 7 questions. I was gonna hit him like hard hitting, like journalistic questions. And the first question was just to get him going. And that first question I asked him, I'll never forget. It was, what does Marvin Gaye's music mean to you? And I
Mhm.
asked him that, and he just took like a deep sigh. He was like, hmm. When I lie to you not, East, he spoke for like the next 12 minutes straight. Like, it was one of the most incredible moments of my life. I'm like, yo, this is Pat Riley. Like, Pat
Mhm.
Riley were talking about, like talking to me about Marvin Gaye, talking about how Marvin Gaye helped him understand like race relations in this country, what Motown was trying to do. And he was like, oh, I was always a Motown guy over the Beatles. Like I was always gonna pick Motown. I'm like, what? And I'm like, yo, Pat is over here he was like, nobody's ever asked him about that though.
Yeah.
Not in depth. And he just took it and ran with it. So I would say Pat Riley is definitely my most like wow interview in my life.
I love that. Now, we've, of course, discussed a lot about your, I guess, career accomplishments and what's leading up to, you being a great, author and writer. But I want to know about your accomplishment of being a great husband and a great father and how that's been rewarding for you.
Man, like I'm only as great a husband as great a wife as that I have. And I'm not even just trying to say that to like earn like, oh, that's sweet. Like, no, my wife Jade is like, I can't really put into words how phenomenal she is as a mother. Like I always knew she was going to be an incredible mother, but like to watch her and see her in this role, it means a lot to me, and it just lets me know that like, yo, my son has like the greatest mother in the world, and she's always going to look out for him. She's always going to protect him. I mean, I am as well, but like I'm a boy who was raised by his mom, so I understand the connection that you're gonna have with your mom, and it warms my heart to know that he will have a connection with his mom like that, and like his mom is always gonna have his back, and he better always have his mama's back, and so I think the world of Jade. I thank her so much for giving us our son and Huey, and they're just. I never thought I would say this because I was the type of person like I'm not getting married, I'm not having kids, I'm not doing any of that. Like, nah, I'm enjoying my single life. I'm doing this, but I can't imagine life without them. And I'm not trying to sit here and say like, oh, you need to have kids, you need to get married, you need to do all this. No, like no, you make the best decision for whatever your life dictates. But for me, I'm just very grateful that I found Jade and Jade found me, and me and Jade got a chance to produce Huey, who is our son. So those are the two best things that happened to me for sure.
I love that. That's beautiful. Before I wrap up real quick and get you out of here, I just want to take time personally to give you your flowers and to just shout you out for the wonderful, author and for wonderful everything that we've been able to discuss. And I mean that genuinely because I just interviewed Randall like a couple of days ago. And he's credited you for like discovering his passion for actually seriously wanting to like involve himself with journalism. Cause I feel like at first he said he wanted to be like a sports agent or something like that. And it wasn't until you visited like a Hampton or he had a discussion with you, he was like, yeah, I can write about what I want. And that, ignited the fire in him. And so even for me personally, I feel like the first time we never had like a discussion or met in person, I don't think. But like I know you had DM me on Twitter to connect me with somebody, I forgot his name, Lord have mercy, but a story I was working on for the Undefeated about Black quarterbacks. And even that, like being a young intern coming in the company, like you didn't have to do that. I really appreciate that. And then I remember when I wrote my JR story, you was like, great work on that. And it's like anybody can say that, or anybody could easily read the article and been like, okay, this is a dope article. Let me just retweet it. Or let me just say like, oh, okay, this is cool. But you actually took time out your day to, to acknowledge that. And that meant a lot to me. So I thank you for the space that you've been able to make for us young Black journalists, for being outspoken and always being a champion for Black women, for any platform that you have, and just really standing behind the culture and not being on no coon shit neither. I appreciate you for that. For sure. I really do.
Now, look, man, you almost made me tear up just now. Like I thank you for that. I got so much love and respect and admiration for you and Isaiah and Randall, and like it's just I because like when y'all first started as like fellows, Roden fellows at the Undefeated, like we were really just getting undefeated off the ground. So it wasn't like I had like that much more skin in the game than you. The only difference was you were at that point in time you were still in school. and I had at ESPN.com on the back of my email address.
Yeah,
That
but
was
even then,
literally
no, I was just a sophomore. I was the youngest one that they had brought in so
see,
far.
and
Yeah,
that's a credit to you for knowing what the hell you want to do, or at least what you think you want to do.
yeah.
By the time you're a sophomore, like I wasn't even thinking about that, but I I definitely feel a real connection with a lot of y'all, and I'm so proud. I'm so proud to see y'all do y'all thing, and so for to hear you say those things about me, like that really means a lot to me because I really respected y'all and y'all class and everything that y'all wanted to do, and it was just like, yo, we all figuring this out. This out together, you know what I mean? Like we just launched the undefeated, y'all the first class of the Roden Fellows, but it was just like maybe it was because I mean, granted, we were still like far apart in terms of like when we were in college together, but I'm like, nah, like they all go to HBCUs, like they know what they want to do, but I know they still having fun there at the same time. It's just like, yo, this is an opportunity I would have loved to have if I had it. So I was like, yo, let me at least try to be as hospitable as I can for them as I'm still trying to learn my damn self who had just turned 30 at that point. You know what I mean? So I'm at a different point. So I'm so proud of y'all. And I think y'all are amazing. And y'all are the same way you just spoke about me right now. I guarantee you there's going to be 10 more people speaking about you in that exact same manner.